Requiem for the Dawnless. Chapter 1. Contact Captain Marcus Richards sat at the helm of the spaceship SS Voyager as it hurtled through the emptiness of space. He glanced at his control panel, checking the readings for the 100th time. Everything looked normal. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "Captain," his second-in-command, Lieutenant Aaron Scott, said, interrupting his thoughts. "We've detected a signal coming from a nearby planet. It's not on any of our charts." Marcus frowned. "Is it a distress signal?" Aaron shook her head. "We can't determine that yet. But it's definitely a signal." "All right," Marcus said, standing up. "Let's investigate." The ship approached the planet, which was covered in a thick blanket of clouds. They landed on a flat area and stepped out onto the rocky terrain. The atmosphere was breathable, but the air was thick and heavy. As they walked around, their sensors picked up readings that indicated the presence of life forms. But they couldn't see anything. The clouds obscured their view. Suddenly, Marcus heard a shuffling noise behind him. He spun around, reaching for his blaster, but it was too late. A group of strange creatures had surrounded them, their sharp teeth and claws glinting in the dim light. Marcus and Aaron backed up slowly, keeping their eyes on the creatures. But they were outnumbered and outmatched. One of the creatures lunged at Marcus, knocking him to the ground. Another attacked Aaron, slashing at her arm. They fought back as best they could, but it was no use. The creatures were too strong. Marcus could feel the life draining out of him as one of the creatures ripped into his abdomen. Just as he was about to give up hope, a beam of light shot down from the clouds, enveloping the creatures in a bright glow. When the light faded, the creatures were gone. Marcus lay there for a moment, catching his breath. Aaron helped him up, grunting in pain from her injury. "What the hell was that?" Marcus asked, looking up at the sky. "I don't know," Aaron said, her face grim. "But I don't like it." They returned to the ship and set a course for home, shaken by the encounter. As they flew away from the planet, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they had just stumbled onto something much larger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Chapter 2. The creature Marcus couldn't get the encounter with the strange creatures out of his head. He spent weeks analyzing and rerunning the data they had collected, but he couldn't find any clues as to what had happened on the mysterious planet. One day, a distress signal came in from a nearby planet. It was coming from a research station that had been studying an anomalous energy source. The signal was garbled, but it was clear that they needed help. Marcus and his crew set out on a rescue mission, determined to help their fellow scientists. As they approached the planet, they were hit by a sudden burst of energy that knocked out their engines. They crash-landed on the surface, barely escaping with their lives. As they stumbled out of the wreckage, they realized that they were not alone. A massive, hulking creature stood in front of them, its hideous, tooth-filled mouth opening and closing as it let out a deafening roar. The creature was unlike anything they had ever seen before, at least 10 times their size, with bulging muscles and razor-sharp claws. It towered over them, blocking their path to the research station. Marcus knew they had to act fast. He gave orders to his crew to try and distract the creature while he made a run for the station. They scattered in different directions, firing their blasters at the creature to draw its attention away. Marcus dodged past the creature, running as fast as he could towards the research station. He could hear the creature's footsteps pounding behind him, each step shaking the ground beneath him. He made it to the station and ran inside, slamming the door shut behind him. He quickly locked it, hoping it would hold against the creature's strength. Inside the station, he found the scientists huddled in a corner, their faces filled with fear. They explained that the anomalous energy source had somehow brought the creature to their planet, and they had been trapped inside the station ever since. Marcus knew that they had to get out of there as soon as possible. He radioed his crew and gave them the signal to regroup at the station. They made a run for it, dodging the creature's attacks as they ran towards their ship. Just as they were about to board the ship, Marcus realized that one of his crew members was missing. He turned around to see the creature standing over the fallen crew member, its clawed foot on their chest. Marcus knew that they couldn't leave without them. He charged towards the creature, dodging its massive claws as he ran. He reached the fallen crew member and pulled them to their feet just as the creature lunged towards them. But Marcus was prepared. He pulled out a grenade and tossed it towards the creature, knowing that it would distract the creature long enough for them to board the ship. The grenade exploded, casting a powerful blast of energy that pushed the creature back. Marcus and his crew scrambled onto the ship and took off into the sky. As they left the planet's atmosphere behind, they knew that they had narrowly escaped with their lives. But they also knew that they had come face to face with a creature that was beyond their wildest nightmares. Chapter 3. Betrayal. After the encounter with the creature, Marcus and his crew were on high alert. They knew that they had to be careful. The universe was full of unknown dangers, and they never knew what was lurking around the next corner. Their next mission took them to a distant planet, which had been rumored to have a hidden cache of valuable resources. The planet was inhabited by a small group of aliens, but they were believed to be peaceful. As they landed on the planet, they were met by the aliens, who welcomed them with open arms. The aliens showed them around their settlement, offering them food and drink and showing them their technology. Marcus was cautious. He knew that things were not always as they seemed, and he didn't trust the aliens completely. But his crew seemed relaxed, and they laughed and chatted with the aliens as though they were old friends. As the day wore on, Marcus's suspicions grew. He noticed that the aliens were watching them closely, their eyes flicking back and forth between the crew members as they moved about the settlement. He also noticed that there were no signs of the rumored resources. Just as he was about to call off the mission and leave the planet, he heard the sound of blasters being charged. He turned around to see the aliens holding their weapons, aimed directly at his crew. He tried to reason with them, to find out what was going on, but it was too late. The aliens had turned on them, and they had no idea why. Marcus and his crew were outnumbered and outgunned. They tried to fight back, but it was no use. The aliens were too skilled, too well armed. In the end, they were captured and brought to a makeshift prison, where they were interrogated and tortured for weeks. Marcus knew that they had been betrayed, but he didn't know why. He couldn't understand why the aliens had welcomed them only to turn on them so brutally. As the days wore on, they began to lose hope. Marcus could feel himself slipping away, both physically and mentally. But just when he thought that it was all over, a group of rebels, who were also fighting against the aliens, broke into the prison, slaughtering the guards and freeing Marcus and his crew. They joined forces with the rebels, who explained that the aliens had been systematically enslaving other planets, using their technology to drain the resources of entire solar systems. Marcus and his crew knew that they had to stop the aliens, to put an end to their reign of terror. They joined the rebels, vowing to fight until the end. But as they fought, they discovered a shocking truth. There was a traitor in their midst, someone who had been giving the aliens information all along. Marcus knew that they had to find the traitor, to root them out and bring them to justice, or their fight would be in vain. Chapter 4. The secret. Marcus and his crew fought alongside the rebels for weeks, driving the aliens back and destroying their technology. But despite their victories, they still had not found the traitor. One day, as they raided an alien stronghold, Marcus stumbled upon a room that was filled with strange, glowing crystals. As he picked one up, he felt a strange energy coursing through his veins. The crystal was unlike anything he had ever seen before. He showed it to his crew, who were just as amazed as he was. They knew that they had to find out more about it. They spent days studying the crystal, analyzing its composition and energy. And that's when they made a shocking discovery. The crystal was a power source beyond anything they had ever seen before. With the crystal, they were able to power their ship and weapons to levels that were far beyond anything they had ever imagined. They knew that with this power, they may be able to turn the tide of the war. But they still had not found the traitor. Marcus knew that they needed to find them, to put an end to the betrayal once and for all. With the added power of the crystal, they set out to track down the traitor and end the war. They traced the traitor's signal to a remote planet, where they landed and set out to confront them. As they approached, they realized that the traitor was none other than Aaron, Marcus's second-in-command and closest friend. Marcus was shocked and hurt. He couldn't believe that Aaron had betrayed them all. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw a flicker of doubt and fear. He knew that something was not right. Aaron explained that she had been captured by the aliens and forced to work for them. They had threatened to kill her family if she didn't cooperate. But now, she wanted to help them, to make up for her mistake. Marcus knew that he couldn't trust her completely, but he also knew that he needed all the help he could get. They joined forces once again, with Aaron promising to help them take down the alien leaders. They launched an attack on the alien homeworld, the crystal powering their weapons and shields to levels that were unheard of. They fought their way through the alien defenses, taking out their ships and weapons with ease. And then, they reached the alien leaders, who were protected by a powerful shield. Marcus knew that there was only one way to get past the shield. They had to overload it using the power of the crystal. He handed the crystal to Aaron, who led the charge against the shield, pouring every ounce of energy she had into it. The shield crackled and then burst, sending shockwaves through the entire planet. With the shield down, Marcus and his crew charged into the alien stronghold, taking out the leaders and destroying their technology. They had won a hard-fought victory, but it had come at a heavy cost. As they returned to their ship, Marcus looked around at his crew, knowing that they had all been changed by the war. They had seen things that no one should ever have to see, and yet they had found a way to endure. But as he looked at Aaron, he knew that he was not done yet. He knew that he had to find a way to help her, to make sure that she could live with what she had done. He vowed to find a way to help her, no matter what the cost. Chapter 5. Renegades. After the war with the aliens, Marcus and his crew were hailed as heroes throughout the galaxy. They were celebrated as the ones who had brought an end to the aliens' reign of terror, and they basked in the adoration of the people. But despite their newfound fame, Marcus knew that there was still work to be done. The universe was still a dangerous and unpredictable place, and there were still those who would use their power for evil. One day, a distress signal came in from a nearby planet. It was from a group of renegades, outcasts who had been exiled from their planet for their radical ideas. Marcus and his crew set out on a mission to rescue the renegades, determined to help those who had been cast out by their own people. As they landed on the planet, they were surrounded by the renegades, who welcomed them with open arms. But as they spent time with the renegades, Marcus began to realize that they were not what they seemed. They were not just outcasts. They were revolutionaries, determined to overthrow the government that had cast them out. Marcus knew that they had to be careful. He didn't want to get involved in politics or take sides in a rebellion. And yet, something about the renegades stirred within him. He knew that they were fighting for something important, something worth fighting for. As he spoke with their leader, a charismatic woman named Lyra, he felt himself drawn to her cause. She explained that the government had become corrupt, using their power to control the people and suppress dissent. Marcus knew that he had to make a choice, to either help the renegades or stay out of it. But as he looked at Lyra and her followers, he knew that he couldn't turn his back on them. They agreed to help the renegades, to aid them in their struggle against the government. They launched a series of attacks on the government's installations, taking out their weapons and freeing prisoners. But as their success grew, so did the danger. The government responded with force, sending in troops and ships to hunt them down. Marcus and his crew were forced to fight for their lives, dodging bullets and blasts. And then, as they were surrounded on all sides, Lyra revealed the ultimate plan, to use the crystal to power a weapon that could bring down the government once and for all. Marcus knew that this was a dangerous move. He knew that using the crystal like this could have dire consequences. But he also knew that they had come too far to turn back now. They activated the weapon, and the crystal pulsed with energy. A massive beam of light shot out from the weapon, striking the government's headquarters and destroying it from the inside out. The government was toppled, and the renegades took control. But as Marcus looked at Lyra and her followers, he realized that they had become the very thing that they had fought against. They had become the new government. He knew that he couldn't stay with them, that he couldn't be a part of their new regime. He and his crew said their goodbyes and set out once again, into the vast, unknown expanse of the universe. Chapter 6. Dawnless. As Marcus and his crew traveled through the uncharted realms of space, they came across a planet that was shrouded in darkness. The sun had long ago burned out, leaving the planet in permanent darkness. They landed on the planet, not knowing what to expect. But as they stepped out of their ship, they were greeted by a strange sight, creatures that glowed with an eerie blue light. The creatures welcomed them to their planet, explaining that they had evolved to live in the darkness. They showed them around their city, which was bathed in the same blue light. As they spent time with the creatures, Marcus began to realize that they were not just strange animals. They were intelligent beings, capable of complex thought and communication. They explained that they had been living on the planet for centuries, waiting for a way to bring back the light. They had been searching for a power source that could restart the sun, to bring light to their planet once again. Marcus and his crew knew that they had to help. They had encountered many strange things in their travels, but this was something else entirely. They agreed to help the creatures find a way to bring back the light. They spent weeks searching the planet, trying to find a power source that could restart the sun. They scoured ancient ruins and searched underground caves, all to no avail. But then, they found something. It was a crystal, much like the one that they had found on the alien planet. They knew that it was the key to restarting the sun. They worked with the creatures, connecting the crystal to a massive network of machines that would focus its energy on the sun. They waited anxiously, hoping that it would work. And then, the sun flickered to life. The planet was bathed in light once again, and the creatures cheered with joy. As Marcus and his crew prepared to leave the planet, they knew that they had made a difference. They had helped to bring light to a world that had been shrouded in darkness for too long. But as they took off, they realized that there was still so much more to do. The universe was full of strange and wondrous things, and they knew that there were still those who needed their help. They set out once again, ready for whatever lay ahead. They knew that the universe was a dangerous and unpredictable place, but they also knew that they had each other, and that was enough. Chapter 7. Requiem. After many long years of traveling the universe, Marcus and his crew found themselves in a quiet corner of space. They had seen many things and done many great deeds, but they knew that their journey was coming to an end. They decided to land on a peaceful planet, to rest and reflect on their experiences. They spent their days exploring the forests and mountains, basking in the warm sun and breathing in the fresh air. But as they sat around the campfire one night, they realized that there was one last thing they needed to do, to say goodbye. They knew that they had grown close over the years, closer than they had ever imagined possible. They knew that they had become a family, bound together by the adventures they had shared. And yet, they also knew that it was time to part ways. They knew that they had accomplished everything they had set out to do, and that it was time to move on. But as they said their goodbyes, something strange began to happen. The sky grew dark, and a strange wind began to blow. And then, they saw a figure approaching them from the darkness. It was Death himself, come to claim their souls. Marcus and his crew stood their ground, ready to fight Death if they had to. But Death simply looked at them and spoke. I have not come for you, but for the crystal. The crystal that powers your ship, that gives you the power to travel through space and time. It is time for it to be returned to its rightful place. Marcus and his crew knew that Death was right. They knew that the crystal did not belong to them, that it was a power beyond their understanding. They handed over the crystal, watching as Death absorbed it into his being. And then, death was gone, leaving them alone in the darkness. They looked at each other, knowing that their journey had come to an end. They knew that they had lived a life that most could only dream of, filled with adventure and danger. But they also knew that it was time to rest. They said their final goodbyes, sharing a moment of silence for all that they had been through. And then, they parted ways, each heading towards their own destiny. They knew that they would never forget the adventures they had shared, the family they had become. As they walked away, Marcus thought about everything they had been through, the wars, the revolutions, the strange and wondrous places they had visited. And he realized that it had all been leading to this moment, this quiet, peaceful moment. And so, they walked into the unknown, ready to face whatever lay ahead. They knew that the universe was a strange and unpredictable place, but they also knew that they had each other, and that was enough. They walked into the darkness, ready for whatever awaited them on the other side. They walked into the unknown, into the great beyond, knowing that their journey had only just begun.